Hey everybody, welcome back to Roadside Nuggets today. Hope everyone's doing all right out there. Whew, it's been a water day, fluid day, whatever fluids get them in the body kind of day. I'm gonna do that starting off, because I usually do it way later on, and I should have drank some more before the stream started. But yeah, whew, today's an interesting day, you know. Definitely pauses, big pauses coming for humanity in a lot of ways where we are not just slowing down and getting a lot of the individual reflection, but also getting the collective reflection in that too. And seeing what humanity has been up to. And for a lot of people on this planet, it's going to be catching up. It's going to be a lot of catching up. A lot of this has already been happened, has been disclosed, has been put out there, has been shared, many times over. Yeah, it just was never acknowledged. It was never received. It was never, listened to in a lot of ways. So now at this point, humanity has the frustration of coming into the party late and still having to accept everything. Whether they chose to resist it earlier on and not, accept it and just stay in denial, here we are at the end of things, folks, and it looks like we are still having to accept the same truths. No matter how long we left on the table, it's still yours. And this is gonna create some things to pop up for the collective because, a lot of people don't like to be told what to do. A lot of people don't like to be enforced to do something. But at the same time, we manifest these experiences for ourselves because of our own resistance, because of our own lack of surrender and stubbornness and control, to where ultimately we manifest an experience that forces us into whatever is highest for us at that point. Meaning we're going to take it personally, meaning we're going to blame, we're going to project, we're going to lash out and make go into victim consciousness like, oh, well, my life is just so horrible and miserable. At the same time, yes, but you did the things that led to that point. And so now that we have to do the work to get ourselves out, doesn't mean it's just going to be easy ride. It's equal energy exchange. How deep you went is how deep you got to dig yourself out. And that equals the same amount of work energetically and processing, going through that process. So it doesn't equate with humanity's linear projection where they think they can get out of this the easy way, where we can bypass so much and get ahead of it and it just disappear. Those things will not happen. It will not. And humanity has to get to the point where they get their balls and really see this as, okay, it will only dissolve once we accept and acknowledge it. So what are we not acknowledging and looking at and accepting and paying attention to in this reality? Right? Because it's a lot more than just the individual transformation. There's things on a global scale that have to come to a halt. Things on a global scale that have to be recognized and acknowledged for how long it has perpetuated, and thus what's the solution for it. We have to have a solution. Whenever we came to Mom, it was never about problems. Mom put a stop to that very early on in the mission. So do not come to me with issues. Come to me with a solution. You are a master. I created you in my image. So therefore, you have the ability to come up with a solution. Then you come to me with the solution, and we work together. God with God. That's how it works. But everyone seems to have this half-assed lack mentality where they just think that they can do the bare minimum or try to skim by, and that's enough, and it's not. God, Mom, did not just skim by. She didn't just do the bare minimum. She did all of it. She did the most, the maximum that she could possibly do, and then more. She pushed it always in all moments to breach and overcome all limits that even God herself had. And that same example, that same practice, that same discipline is thus for us all, her children, and that does not make us, any one of us, not a single person on this planet, exempt at all from any of that process. So there's a lot of things we got to look at humanity and realize that it is... things are not in alignment at all. And the quicker we can accept this, the quicker we can, acknowledge to ourselves, all right, this is a problem. Why isn't anyone saying anything about it? Why are we not talking more about what is out of alignment, what is out of place? Therefore, that specific energy through the focus can come through and come back into alignment. And that's really what we got to get our focus at, folks. We got to, stop the superficial pretending game, just trying to get it through a day, a day at a time, and just trying to buy more moments. We don't have any moments. At this point, we have to have a come to Jesus moment. I like to call it. It's like one of my music teacher, or not my music teacher, my economics teacher in high school. She was famous for that coined phrase, but in a lot of ways, it is having that come to Jesus moment where we are being real with ourselves and looking at everything as a whole and not trying to have excuses, not trying to have a bypass, not having a way out or any way to make it easier for us to accept it. Can we just accept it fully in its rawness and its full truth, authenticity, and not have to do something to it for us just to surrender to what that truth is, what that energy is, and just be okay, this is it. Let's move forward with this. What do we do about it? What's the solution? Instead of all the playing games with everyone, buying time, trying to just move on and get out of the picture with it, that's really what we have to focus on.
Now look at this. Biden and he just providing for the additional funding that would provide for no hidden bills, etc. And I can get it done. I can get it done quickly, and people will be covered. But even I can't do that for another a year between now and November, or actually January. But to be covered. What? And I can get it done. I can get it done quickly, and people will be covered. But even I can't do that for another a year between now and November, or actually January. But to be covered.
The sad part about that, Sleepy Joe is right. You know the sad part about that? When you do that, you can't really recover. You can be Winston Churchill.
Now,
We are not defunding the police. We have
And
not.
are there people who, in the Democratic Party,
Are there people in the Republican Party who think we're sucking the blood out of kids?
I'm not sure. Are there people?
Guys, check this out. This is a website called Leo Labs, and you can literally see all of the satellites around the entire world. It's awesome.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Wait.
Everybody calm down! No, Michael, no!
Isn't that wild? I hope y'all enjoyed those little videos. But that's just like small little different topics that people just bypass and try to move past so much. And what is going on? In that second part of the video, I feel I'm going to play that again because it's like that one news reporter lady, she literally didn't say anything, and it has it in subtitles. She didn't say anything about children, anything about blood, or anything about any of that stuff. I'm not sure how much they'll censor, so I'm trying to be careful with the words. However, and yeah, she didn't say a single thing, anything relatively close to his response. He was like, is anyone in the Republic like, what our children, what? Like it just completely just showing themselves, short-circuiting and completely revealing themselves of what is going on and what, all the conspiracy theorists are talking about and saying, yet how does that get back to the original person all the conspiracy theorists are saying stuff about, yet the same person that they're talking all this stuff about that no one wants to believe actually says it verbatim out of their own mouth without any single prompt to that even that idea. Yet it came forward. It revealed itself. They showed themselves because the darkness has to reveal itself in the light. So this is what's going to start happening more and more and more as we move forward into ascension and these deeper energies and more intense manifestation. You cannot hide anything. The darkness cannot hide anything any longer. And so, as humanity is pulling back, as they're starting to register, see these things, acknowledge, start to pull back and wait a minute. How did we get here? How did I get here? And these are troubling things that they need an answer to, because this is not acceptable where we are just sitting in this dysfunction and we're like, okay, well, let's just make it better. Let's just figure out how to survive, how to thrive, how to live, how to make it. It's like, why do we even get to that point of just trying to figure out how to make it? How about we go back to the point of how this shit even came into being and get rid of it? Therefore, this isn't even part of our trajectory in life. It's even part of our basis for life. It's even part of our lifestyle at all. You see? It's like nobody wants to go to the core. Nobody wants to go to the actual truth of what is happening and what that will actually reveal. That's the fear. It's like, well, who actually is responsible? Well, I can keep I'll catch you guys up real quick, and it's everybody on this planet. Everybody is responsible and accountable. So, the fact that we have this core awareness that everyone's responsible and accountable, now that we get to the nitty-gritty details of who these beings are, what's been done, everything like that, everyone wants to whitewash it, make it very quick, like, okay, let's just go over here with it. Like, no. The same amount of energy that it took to fester this dysfunction and corruption, equal energy exchange, the same amount of focus and intention needs to be put back into that space, back into that black hole and void, to flip that back into wholeness and truth and love, and realize the higher truth and that the higher realization, higher idea. Restore it back to love. Trying to run away from things and leave them as they are is the reason why things get dirty, is the reason why we have to go back and clean things up, is the reason why things corrupt, fester, break down, and decay. Because they are left alone. You have to go back through that dysfunction and be like, no, this is not going to stay energetically as this. Evolve it, flip it into a higher light, a higher idea, a higher truth, a higher feeling of love, where these principles are actually implemented into it, which it will change the response. It will change the outcome. It will change the result, instead of being the redundant dysfunction that we're so used to seeing, that everyone's being told to accept. Everyone's being told to submit. Just allow it. It's life. Don't be such a baby about it. No, you better raise your voice and say something about it, because this shit is dumb. It is so dumb and retarded how we want to censor everything. We want to quiet all the voices, yet come up with different, of techniques, come up with different solutions and things to do in order to cover up the mess, in order not to be in pain and suffering while we perpetuate the pain and suffering. It's like, how stupid and insane is humanity at this point? Galactics feel quite highly in that area. It's a high percentage. Unfortunately, the amount of insanity that humanity is going through every single day, making the same single choices that are bringing the same outcome that they're screaming for help from, screaming to be saved from, demanding that God show herself, which she did. You missed her. And do something about it, which she did. You missed it. You see, this is humanity's childishness, where they sit here and just want something done. They want it to be fixed. They want it to be out of their existence, but they won't lift a finger. They won't put a single amount of effort behind actually figuring it out, coming up with a solution. How do we fix this? How do we flip it for ourselves? Thus, share that with everyone else so everyone can flip it for themselves, and then we'll be in a different reality. Do you see how that works? But then everyone has deaf ears. Nobody's listening. Nobody wants to receive or acknowledge what is being received. And that's the irritating thing. It's like the amount of energy that gets to the expression point, and then when it's expressed, that's a lot of energy pushing to the expression, the awareness point. Now, when it's not received, when it's not accepted, it creates a disruption in the energy flow, meaning that full realization, the full awareness of that energy in its process, in its experience, has now been disrupted. It's been given a pushback, where, of course, we have to do more work, more effort to push the expression and awareness back out again through other outlets, other ways, until it is accepted, until it is received and acknowledged, wherefore it can integrate. After it's received, then it integrates and then processes into higher enlightenment and information. You cannot skip steps. All steps must be honored and respected for their rightful process, in the entire process. This takes work and awareness of what you are doing. Because in order for you to be a god on this planet, in order for you to be pushing magic around and flying about, doing all cool little things, you gotta be really responsible. Because a hair out of line with that, you could cause a lot of destruction with creation or just this planet. And we're just talking about one person. You got 8 billion people running around on this planet, not responsible, not accountable, not caring what they're doing, not paying attention to what they're doing at any moment. Are you kidding me? We would be in bigger dysfunction and corruption than you could possibly believe if God allowed that to be part of our human experience at this point, with how docile and disassociated we actually are with ourselves and with reality. Galactic's creation, divine plan will not turn that on, will not allow that into this experience, will not allow certain things to activate in the human reality until the human being itself can get a fucking grips on the reality it's even in. How you think that you're going to fly around and do things if you don't even understand the reality you are moving into? The basic core principles and functions of this reality, and what 5D means, and how you integrate with that, what that means for yourself and your lifestyle, your changes and your becoming of something greater and grander. Are any of these things part of your focus? Do any of these things matter to you enough to where it actually dictates your day, to where, oh, fuck work, fuck hanging out with friends, fuck going to this club, social organization. No, I'm going to sit here and go through the deepest shit in myself. So tomorrow when I wake up, I will be far, far from this place. And I will be standing in a grander version of myself, which is eons away from where I'm right now. I have to make a choice. Tomorrow could come. That moment could come. Who knows? But the intention, the choices, and the effort and application of that are not done. Don't even worry about it. Don't even fantasize about it. Don't even think about it. Because it's not coming. It's just going to be a dream, a fantasy, because you're not going to do the work to get to it. You see? We have to pull ourselves back and really feel into what this reality is about and what human life is. What is this planet we are literally standing on that we've been walking around on our whole life, yet we don't know that much actually about? It hasn't mattered to us in our human life because we've been so busy racing to the finish line of some linear projection, trying to get it all before our moment's gone, when none of that even exists.
Well, I have a sort of suggestion, and that is this: that before we decide either to save the planet or to destroy it, we pause for a moment of silence. I don't mean that kind of grim silence which one observes when somebody says, such and such a famous person has just died, and we'll observe a moment of silence in his honor, and everybody frowns and thinks very serious thoughts. That's not silence at all. I mean real silence, in which we stop thinking and experience reality as reality is. Because after all, if I talk all the time, I can't hear what anyone else has to say. And if I think all the time, and by that I mean specifically talking to yourself subvocally inside your skull, if I think all the time, I have nothing to think about except thoughts. And so I'm never in touch with the real world. Now, what is the real world? Some people have the theory that the real world is material or physical. I say it's made of kind of a stuff. Other people have the theory that the real world is spiritual or mental. But I want you to point out that both those theories of the world are concepts. They are constructions of words. And the real world is not an idea. It is not words. Reality is You will find, therefore, that if you get with reality, all sorts of illusions disappear.
Man, I love some Alan Watts, man. That guy had mama codes. He was holding it down on the planet along with Einstein. I love them both. Just brilliant geniuses that just soothe my soul. Every time I listen to that, I can just hear the higher self and the divine frequencies rolling off as they, move through their experience in that specific moment in time, and just realize and heal and be able to expand and express themselves and document and share and be able to help humanity relate along the way, along the journey with higher perspective, with higher truth, the higher idea they have not been able to reach in their life until they met this man, until they met this person, until they met mom, where it constantly changed everything they ever believed, everything they ever attached to, thought was true, everything they ever thought about themselves, to where they go through this massive unraveling of themselves, to where so much comes pouring off, they have to get steady. They have to figure out where to find themselves internally within their own being, because so much of the illusion is now shifting and changing and falling away, to where they have to catch themselves. And where they have let themselves go so much over life, selling for the false identity, as that false identity dissolves and goes away, they must find the true self within their own being and anchor that in and trust themselves while they move through this massive de-evolution of the ego. It's pretty much what it is. It's the evolution of the soul and the de-evolution of the ego, where these are splitting off, and it feels like that giant split in our own being as the ego dies and dissolves and pours more out, and we choose every single moment through our experience every day the higher self of our own being, which that's what pulls into our body instead of the ego, where we've been so used to choosing that our whole life.
Is that we confuse ourselves as living organisms with our idea of ourselves. That is to say, with a conception of myself which is called the personality or ego. That is what we have been told we are. And it's an extremely crude and limited conception of oneself, of the actual unique living organism. And we get unhappy because we're thinking of ourselves in this way, because we think, well, gee, I'm going to die. I once talked to a woman who came to me and said she was afraid of death. And we went into it in a long conversation. I said, what are you really afraid of? And she thought it over, and he said, do you know, what I'm going to be afraid of is what other people are going to say. They're going to say, poor old Gert, she couldn't last it through. Because you see, who you think you are is entirely dependent on who people have told you you are. You're not that. Then another thing that bothers us is time. Most people nowadays say, I have no time. Of course you don't. Because you are not aware of the present. You know, the present is represented on your watch by a hairline that is as thin as possible, as is consistent with visibility. And so everybody thinks the present is, instead of now, the present is the only real time. There is no past, and there isn't a future. And there never will be. We think ordinarily of the present as an infinitesimal point at which the future changes into the past. And we also do a terrible thing. We imagine ourselves to be results of the past. And we're always passing the buck over our shoulders, like when God approached Adam in the Garden of Eden and said, "Hast thou eaten of the fruit of the tree whereof I told thee thou shouldst not eat?" And Adam said, "This woman thou gavest me, she tempted me, and I did eat." And God looked at Eve and said, "Hast thou eaten of the fruit of the tree whereof I told thee thou shouldst not eat?" And she said, "The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat." And God, out of the corner of his eye, looked at the serpent. The serpent said nothing. So you see, we're always passing the buck. And don't realize that the past is caused by the present, as the wake of a ship flows back from the prow. Now, the wake doesn't drive the ship any more than the tail wags the dog. But we've all got excuses. My mother had a fit while she was carrying me in the womb. They didn't bring me up right. And then they go to the mother and say, "How is it that you could have been so irresponsible with your children?" And she says, "Well, it was my parents who didn't bring me up right either." And so everybody passes the buck. But the truth of the matter is, it all begins here. This is where the creation begins.
I like that little point that he did there. I mean, and even though I really don't reference the Bible for anything really. It's a full. Mama said very little of the Bible holds any truth at all. And I feel those were like books of Corinthians and Revelations. I think those are the only two parts of the Bible that actually had real valid truth and awareness for humanity, for the ascension process, and the rest of it's just bullshit. It's just convoluted. It's been too tainted and too manipulated from its original context of what it was originally written as over the thousands of years that they've been talking about this Bible book. But definitely, also the Adam and Eve story. It's been a massive, lie that's been, given to humanity and just very manipulated in its context. It's not the true story. However, basing it and this is where, as a master, as a being of high consciousness vibration, where you can observe something even in its dysfunction and get relative truth and awareness out of it. And if you look at it from this standpoint, as a Bible that was written thousands of years ago, and humanity has ego. So of course, especially if they're not transforming and processing, being aware of their ego, anything they create, anything that they write and produce is going to have that energy in it, the ego and the manipulation that they did. And just a lot of that consciousness of where consciously that being is at when they write and document that at that time, right? So now they're reading this stuff thousands and thousands of years later, and how Alan Watts kind of pulled this out and really looked at it in general basis, where he could, in a big picture way, and just showing you, not validating the whole he God thing. Nope, God's a woman. Get that out of here. Not validating the whole Adam and Eve story. That's real. Nope, get that shit out here. It was a very different story compared to what they tell you. However, at this point, as the story is stated, they are revealing themselves through the story they're producing to humanity, as he was distinctly going through this as God was asking Adam about the apple, then Adam passed it on to Eve, and then God asked Eve about it, and Eve blamed the snake. And it's like, that's where humanity is at, in that consciousness, where we just keep trying to throw someone else under the rug, trying to blame it on someone else instead of being accountable, instead of seeing our own energy and being responsible for what we have done in those moments, instead of pulling someone else into it. It's like, regardless of that, that's where that past tense, that's where that keep going back, keep passing along that hot baton without anyone really well, let's look at it and stop passing it around. And that's where a lot of the stuff has been misplaced. A lot of things have gotten through in humanity's awareness because they were not paying attention, because they didn't want the accountability in the first place. They just kept passing along. Who's to blame? Who's the one responsible? Where you are. And then just passing this along to where it's like it leaves everybody wide open. So we have a planet full of so much dysfunction at this point where, we have to really slow down and look at the real pillars in this reality. And the truth is, like Mom has shared many times, we all are God. She is God, the Godhead, and we are all her reflections, the fragments of her. We are all inside Mother God's consciousness, And she did say it's going to be a bumpy ride. However, on this point, it's like realizing that we are inside God's consciousness. What kind of planet and world do you think you live in? What reality do you really think? Are you still sold on the whole 9-to-5 job thing? Come home, take care of your family, go to bed, and do it all again tomorrow? You still sold on that whole thing? Or have you peered more into yourself, thus peering more into life and what's going on this planet, and realizing that a lot of things are so out of place that you actually do not feel and agree that God is okay with this? There's a point you come to in your human common sense where you're like, okay, God being unconditional love, God being wrathful and punishing, those do not work. They don't fit. They never have. Yet in this trying to make it work, make it one thing, is why all this insanity and bullshit exists. Because you couldn't even get the core things right, humanity. This is why everything else didn't get right. Okay? You cannot have a wrathful, punishing God, but then that God's be unconditionally loving. Like, I'm confused. Like, how do you get that in the same pot and serve it? And people eat it. Like, it's confusing. It doesn't make sense. It's the most contradictory thing you could ever feed anyone in a church setting, that all of them will sit there and completely happily say, yes, I agree. That's the concerning part, right? And this is how confused humanity is, how distorted humanity is, even on the core principles of what their life is even based out of. Who are they and what they are based off of? And they're so afraid to even realize where it's at, where are they at, and even make a choice of where to anchor themselves in at. What are their choice points? What's their purpose? What's their main intention in life? What have they been going on for the last 5 years? Was it ever an intention? Was it ever for a purpose, or have you just been living day by day by day to see what happens? Are you that turned off and unplugged from reality at this point, so exhausted and just bitter about everything and resentful that you just don't want to play and participate in the human experience anymore? That you feel you've had a full cup at this point, that you don't feel you have to engage human reality anymore? That's beyond insane. And yet these same people will find themselves in light worker communities trying to say that they've already ascended this reality. Why? Because you're bored and you're exhausted and you're just done? Because you can't get your balls up and actually do something? You want to sit there and talk all day? Yeah, these are the same people saying that they've been 13D, they're 20D, they've already ascended, they came back, and it's like, get real. Get so real with yourself. Because this amount of fantasy and delusion is what keeps people allowing more dysfunction to come in and then trying to find a reason to justify, like, oh, well, it's ascension symptoms. This is part of the ascension process. No, this actually could have been, transformed. You could have got ahead of this energy. Had you been aware, had you been present, had you been accountable a year ago, this would not be. For humanity to catch up to this, they're going to come into the experience much like that. Catching up to the realization they could have done a lot of these things moments before, and now that's their lesson to master it now, so then every moment going forward, it is a different, higher experience then. But they got to catch up. They got to get that point. And we are all God. We are all co-creating with Mom in this experience, and it literally is where everyone is consciously and vibrationally at in your individual experience right now. Meaning a lot of it has a lot to do with your work, your choices, your push, how much you will experience, how much you will expand in these moments, and it's up to you. There is nothing that we can, what should we say, change in the timeline to where All beings, all 8 billion people on this planet are allowed their individual experience to arrive in unity consciousness. That does not mean that God's not putting on the heat for you. That doesn't mean that God's letting you just do what you want till you finally choose that you want to be loved. Do you finally choose you want to be a service to humanity? Do you finally choose you want to, support others? Creation is not your abuse tool. Creation is not your pincushion doll where you can just abuse and be conniving and low all you want to the point where okay, well, maybe I'll have a change of heart and be a kinder person. No, how about mom comes in and just completely wipes that slate clean and you just get the point through your own lesson, and that's the heat that you're asking for. Humanity has been too loud and too complacent in this, hurting and abusing other people and allowing their actions not to be fully taken responsible and, accountable for, to where that has perpetuated a cycle of trauma and abuse to where people keep continuing the cycle. To where it's at what point do you feel you're going to keep challenging God? At what point do you feel you're going to keep asserting against God's plan and her will and think you're going to get your way? And this is where the ego is getting isolated in the individual experience, where people are getting more frustrated, more agitated and angry because what they want, what they are pushing, what they are planning for, what they are betting on is now falling through so hard and so fast. They're spinning. They don't know what to do because it worked before. This was part of the process before, and they could always get it before. Why is it not working now? Because prediction, expectation, premeditation, ulterior motive, those things are out, people. You no longer get to play the game with those modes. They're obsolete. And because humanity has been so fixated on being the same, not changing, thus the growing pains of learning how to change real fast. Those are immense growing pains that humanity chose for themselves by being too stagnant and delayed in their evolution and expansion, by not surrendering, by not trusting and resisting everything God pushed towards you at the highest state of love to assist you in lifting up, and you didn't want to. Humanity wanted to hold on to the pain and suffering. Humanity wanted to identify with the pain and the trauma and the darker history instead of looking their eyes up and hoping, praying for a better time and a better experience tomorrow to happen. So fixated on everything that has happened, we allow it to be our everyday nightmare instead of just saying enough, no more. I don't want to look at that shit no more. And that comes after you've acknowledged it. So it's very different from people trying to be bypassing, just complacent, well, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I heard about that yesterday. No, how about, did you look at it? Did you listen to it? Did you pay attention? Did you learn from it? Did you expand and grow from it? Then you didn't pay attention at all. The bypass and the level of bypass where people try to measure and scale how much they receive, how much they acknowledge, how much they receive, as if it's like a data bank for the brain. It has more to do with energy than anything. It has more to do how you can sit there in that and actually feel and receive and process, and how it pingboards off of everything inside your own being as it's being expressed to let you know inside yourself where that lack in yourself actually is. It's at this one-way road where humanity thinks they're supposed to be enabled and entitled to something, yet they won't give anything back. It's ridiculous. And this allows the ego to stay in this place of fantasy, where it can not create, but just fabricate. That's a better way. Thanks, angels. Not create, fabricate. These other layers of delusion where we get so far out ourselves. Start looking at things that we want. Start looking at things that we think will make ourselves happy, yet we were not doing the work to get what's already inside that's been blocking it out. The level of authenticity you have to have with yourself in these moments, and thus going further in this, this year, next year, however long this road is for us, we don't know. It's going to be fast though. And the faster we go, the more intensity is coming, which means the more you have to choose quicker and quicker and quicker to choose yourself, choose love, choose trust, choose God. You have to get so good and organic with this that it is like breathing at that point. Because that's how real it has to be for you at that point, for you not to be stuck and pulled constantly into the other illusion that is falling away and dissolving so fast. That's where everyone's going crazy at. Right? The quicker you can be real and true with yourself, the quicker you can be real and true with the world and be able to navigate in a better, higher way that you're not maybe suffering so much from. But your inability to receive, your inability to be real with awareness and truth that is coming in, whether it's coming from you or somebody else, or just this planet is showing and reflecting back its own reflection collectively of what is wrong with humanity, and it's not being heard. It's not being listened to how this needs to move back into solution, back into correction and alignment with love. How it has been lack and devoid of trust, truth, integrity, beauty, compassion, and nurturing, to where these things have to be given to the same energy for it to even be realized in its highest truth. Yet everyone wants the scapegoat. Everyone wants the fast pass. You ever been in Six Flags? There's this thing called fast pass. Everyone wants that. Everyone wants just to cut the lines. They don't want to wait. They don't have patience anymore. They don't want to endure anything anymore. They just want everything to be quick, quick, quick now. And they have no respect or commitment or loyalty to the same amount of energy that they may have devoted long moments before that created that dysfunction. And so thus, out of equal energy exchange, not willing to give the same effort energy back to work that energy back to the higher idea, thus where this ping pong keeps playing around. Get through a layer, go back into it. Get through a layer, go back into it. Get through a layer, go back into it. It's like they can't really choose fully for themselves to get it. Go after it. Realize it. Dig for it. Be vulnerable and open up to it. It's like this back and forth thing where it's like, well, this was enough today. Maybe tomorrow I'll go a little bit more. It's like, no, keep pushing it. Keep going as far as you can. Therefore, tomorrow, if that comes, the next moment, you can push even more because now you've reached this limit, this max, and now you know tomorrow, this is now your base of where you will rise from. You're not going backwards. You're not going back down. You're not going back to 0 and going to 60 every day and you'll never get to 100. No, you keep moving up every moment. It's always a stretch. It's always a push. It always is and has to be in this moments. And you have to get to the point where you're comfortable with realizing this and saying these terms to yourself that it has to be a push. No more of this docile, lazy, laxative, like, oh, well, you know, I might do that discipline today. I'll get one out the way. How about you move your ass, humanity? Because your stress, your anxiety, your frustrations keep growing, getting more intense. Things are crashing around you, and it's going to get even worse until you decide that it does matter, that you will move on this because you realize this has direct effect on your experience in reality. You can't change that. You're going to go mad and insane before you fully realize you have to get into your center to ride it out. You cannot control. You cannot push back because that's God, ding, that you're trying to push back against. You cannot push back the experience. It is there. It is for you. It is given by God. And beyond your awareness, you don't know better. You don't. I'm sorry. Nobody on this planet knows better than God. You have seen this. She showed it to us while she was here for long moments. We do not know better than her. God will checkmate you in a heartbeat if you think you can play chess with God. This is her game board. This is her experience. This is God's consciousness. And everyone has a role and a part in this. And the players that don't want to participate, you can get off the board. The beings that want to perpetuate the dysfunction on this board, you can get off the board. Okay? We're cleaning this all up. And we're opening up for higher evolution. And that's what God has decreed. Love everywhere present. 5D. Unity consciousness. Anything that does not fit in with that, anything that is not a vibrational match to that, guess what? It is not coming. Therefore, you either get through it now and figure it out and dissolve it, recycle it back to the sun, or you go with it. You see how that works? That's how real we are at this point, and there's already people getting pulled off the planet already. It's not to scare anybody. It's not to cause fear. These are actual real facts, truth. They're only going to get more intense. The more you choose to resist, the more you choose to have more time on your plate that you want, regardless of what God is actually allowing to your experience and is telling you to move your ass and get on, this is where the personal human will comes to a halting crash. As all the lights just faded weirdly. This is where the human will comes to a halting crash, and you will learn the painful surrender to divine will of God, because God's will is all will of creation. Humanity never had personal will. We don't have it now. We never will have personal will. It's a fantasy and a delusion that humanity's bought so much into. They have actually allowed so much of the chaos because they think it's their choice. They think they're in control. They think they have the wheel on this thing, and nobody does. Absolutely nobody has the wheel on this thing except for mom. And so how much intensity and push you need from all divine enforcement and intervention for you to finally let go of your personal will, your personal pride, and thinking that you can just do it on your own, and realize you haven't had it the whole time. And finally surrender to the one who already did it, did all the work, and has keep sustaining you the entire time while you're trying to fight her. That's the insanity part of it. It's like God's sustaining and managing all life on this planet in the highest hopes and idea to help everyone get to 5D, yet everyone wants to fight her. Fighting the highest healing that you have spent your entire life begging and pleading and screaming to God for. And yet you'll fight her to the last breath. Some of you in humanity will. Refusing the main thing that you have gone crazy in your life to discover and find for yourself. That's how deranged humanity is. That's how disassociated we are. We don't even see the truth and the love and the healing when it's right in front of our face. We are such in disassociation with everything that we constantly think everything's a fight, everything's a war, everything's a battle, everything is mine, everything's best for them. You know, it's like, what is this? And people say beautiful words all the time, but yet those same people an hour later is like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't see that during the speech. That's a different type of, like, literally, because they're so dissociated. Where it's like they'll come online, the higher self will come online for a moment, and it's like, where's that person at? Dysfunction, denial, delusions of grandeur, completely in their own attachment. They're like control everything like that, but they have this one grand moment where they can be divine. Mom says no more. You gotta push it. All moments, all 24/7, you gotta go, 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 go now. Because the more you slow down, what's picking up behind you isn't gonna decrease. That's your own anxiety you're gonna build up for yourself, your own intensity and stress. Until you can come up with better techniques and ways to leave it off, to process and transform it, to move it in different ways. And that's how you'll feel better. And then you'll learn by feeling better that these are the better practices. And by learning those are the better practices, you'll keep doing those a lot more versus the less beneficial practices that have been getting you in trouble this whole time. And see, if we even get humanity to that point where they can actually decide that for themselves, they got to go through so much damn uphill battle just to realize, oh, I'm part of the problem. I'm causing this. I'm adding more work to my own self, and yet who am I going to blame? Nobody. You can't blame anybody. It's your own shit. This is so important, humanity, where we have to have that come to Jesus moment with ourselves and realize that it's not about us. It's not about anybody. It's about everyone at this point. And the more you have these weird limitations and boundaries and boxes where you're just like, oh, well, that's their business, I'll just leave them alone. Oh, well, that's just, yeah, like, you want to create those boxes, the same boxes you've been living in the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of your life, telling you how to live your life and what's wrong with the world, and you believed it the whole time, and now you're completely fucked because you don't know what's going on. So how about you stop doing that projection of putting things in boxes, because it keeps creating itself in your world where you get put in the box. You see how that works? When you want to put things in a box, you get put in a box. When you want to take things out of the box and look at it, everything gets taken out of the box and looked at. Don't you see that? It's a reflection, a direct reflection manifestation of the internal being. So let's start taking things out of the box and looking at them and cleaning them up. Thus, the external reality reflection of that is going to be pulling a lot of shit out of the box and looking at it and getting it cleaned up for the collective. This is how you start that movement forward with yourself. Be the example. Everything follows afterwards. It's not the other way around. The world is not going to turn pretty and beautiful and rainbow like for you just so you can be divine. You got to do the work first. The reflection will happen after. That's what the process is. You have to realize how powerful you really truly are, humanity.
And so everybody passes the buck. But the truth of the matter is, it all begins here. This is where the creation begins. And you're doing it and won't admit it. Because, of course, you're all God in disguise.
So I definitely want to just kind of depart everyone with that and just really feel into how powerful of a statement that is. You know, we are all God in disguise. Mom has already shared this moment, so many moments. We are inside her consciousness. This is her experience that she has brought us all of her souls, you know, down into to participate in this human incarnation experience with her. And even saying that, the amount of acceptance and accountability and respect and responsibility that goes with that is not there. To most of humanity, these feel like pretty hollow words because they lack their own confidence, their own stability and self-trust to stand in a place and a role such as that and realize how much of responsibility that actually is and what that means, what that purpose is. So by saying things and sharing things all the time, it does nothing to a certain point. If the human being can't even realize that's reality, that's freaking truth. You are being here on this planet for a very high divine role. Yet does anything in your physical life day to day say anything about that? Does it truly show that and reflect that and express that? Because if not, then you're not actually accepting it. You're not actually standing in your own divinity. It's like this hobby thing you like to listen to, you like to read about. It sounds cool, feels good for a moment, go get high, get drunk. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I'm an alien. Where the fuck is the lifestyle? Where the fuck is the work at? Where's the fuck is the authenticity at? The truth. I see a lot of people playing games, costume dress up, but they ain't about the accountability and the weight that carries. They're not going to pick that up. They're not carrying it to the finish line. They're not doing their part, pulling their load for God, which is the whole reason why you're here. So we can talk about beautiful things and we can be funny and laugh and all that. However, if the real truth, if the actual purpose of this mission is not being accepted and acknowledged, this is not a 24/7 party until we just get to 5D. The party is 5D. We're trying to get there. So if you're more focused about having moments and just playing around now, you can move to the back of the line. We got shit to do, work to get done here on this planet, and the beings that are ready are going to step up. Mom's going to pull them from the collective. If you're not ready, if you don't want to do it, you don't want to get online, you don't want to participate, God will move you to the back of the line. She'll pull the people that want to do this. That's in their heart to stand up and support this ascension, this mission, humanity, and do whatever it takes to get us out of this hellhole. Because Mom's not coming back until that happens. Therefore, what are your choices, humanity? What actually matters to you? You still want to wait for Netflix in 2 months when that favorite show of yours comes back out? Is that what you're waiting for? Or are you waiting for God? You're waiting for a 5D ascension, waiting for these things to get better. What are you actually waiting for? What are you paying attention to? What matters? What's on your calendar? What's on your agenda? Because that's going to show you where all your energy's at. It's going to show you where all your focus and your importance is at. And none of that says mom, love, mission, higher self, evolution, anything. You're all kinds of backwards. And that's why your reality right now is so fucked up. Okay? And I say this in the highest amount of compassion and love and transparency. This is some tough love. Because for you to get to the beautiful things and feel better and heal, These things have to be looked at, and you have to get real with yourself of what you're doing that is sabotaging your life. Okay? Love yourselves and respect yourselves enough to make it matter to yourself, to get yourself to a better place. Because that's what mom wants. Mom wants to see everyone happier, feeling better, healing themselves, being loved towards each other. And God is not a fool. You don't lie to God. You can't cheat God. You can't betray God. God is full truth and full integrity. So if you're going to do it because that's what she's watching for. And if you're trying to play pretend, copycat, mimic, act like you're doing it, she can see right through that. And she's not amused. She's not enjoy at all watching you waste her precious moments that she worked so hard for to get off this damn planet, for you to get to this point and just piss on it. And I can say that for a lot of people out there who have fallen off since mom has ascended. You know exactly who I'm talking to. We're not here to enable anyone. We're not here to allow anyone to be complacent with themselves. Holding everyone accountable and responsible for what is going on is going to get us all through this. Because if everyone wants to branch off and do their own thing, guess what? It's going to be a lot of their own thing, own timeline, own bullshit that now has to get processed and gone through now individually with everyone, which is a whole other layer of 3D dysfunction. Don't you get it? It's time to come back to the center, come back to unity. Let's hold ourselves high, support each other, and actually be real. Real enough to get off this damn planet into 5D. That's really what we're going for. But it takes everyone individually choosing that for themselves, for everyone to even stand in the middle and say yes to that in full unity. Not 5 people do it and then 2 people slack off and we got to carry the weight. No, everybody in their own individual being, their own sovereignty, choosing this for themselves. So when you get in that circle, it truly is every single one in true unity, support, consciousness. That's how it works. And that's where the pressure is going to keep coming. It's going to get everyone to that place where they have realized it matters. Nothing in this world matters other than love. Nothing in this world is going to last or help you endure what is coming next except for love in this ascension process. And the quicker and more comfortable you get with that idea and that truth with yourself and others, the easier the process is going to be for you. And nothing's going to change that until you surrender to God's love. All right. I love you all. Take care of yourself. Stay hydrated. Go outside and ground. Gratitude ceremonies. Get that shit out. Write it down. Don't let it sit inside. And move yourself back into peace and harmony. Breathe. Watch a funny video today. Do something that makes you laugh. Be in your zone. Be in your that energy where you can just open up, unravel, relax, and swim through yourself. Acknowledge and reflect on yourself today. It's okay. You're evolving, you're growing. And to be something so beautiful and divine, you have to watch the moments. Did anyone have gone to a movie theater and just like waited until the movie got to the very end and then went into the theater to see the ending? No, that's dumb. You watched the whole movie from start to finish. Building the anticipation, the magnificence, the beauty of the end result. What the ending is going to be, what the truth will be in the end. That all builds and gives part to that process and the beautiful, glorious ending. So stop trying to cheat yourself. Slow down and pause and observe how you are changing and growing in these moments. Document and make it matter because it will make it so much more worth it in longer moments ahead when you realize how far you've come, how much you have changed and evolved. And it's going to mean so much more to you because you actually paid attention now to care about it now. So there will be more depth in that when you get to that realization later. Okay? I love you all. Take care.